accept that, and that doesn't seem to line up with the compartmentalisation of the information. And the cure for HIV is what you mentioned, that he told John Lear about this.
Exactly.
I'm not sure whether that possibly came out in one of his hypnotic regression sessions, but it came from Bob Lazar. And could you tell me about that, about this alleged, well, it was manufactured virus?
Well, the allegation, and don't quote me on the exact science here, but I believe it comes from an undersea cucumber, an actual animal that is only found in China.
This is the cure?
Yeah, this is the alleged cure for AIDS.
Right.
And an extraction from its secretions, when injected into the body, combined with some form of polymer, actually breaks down the RNA, which is
the protein
a coating.
Yeah,
if you think of it as a plastic coating around the bag part of the cell that'll hurt you.
Yeah.
It breaks it down and allows your own antibodies to go in on the attack and kill it. But from what I understand, both from what I've read about Bob Lazar and also from John Lear, and that is that they've tried to get this a quantity of this sea cucumber out of China, and on each occasion it's been spoiled or deliberately damaged by some sort of particle beam or X-ray or microwave device. Well, the question I would ask there is well, surely it must be possible to grow one of these things in the United States, or to grow one of these things here. And it may well be possible to order the seeds over the internet. I really don't know, but it just seems odd that the cure is there, but yet nobody's got access to it.
Yeah. I mean, I find that one hard to believe. What about you, Jed? Do you think?
Same with me. It's like I say, it's just a one-off thing, and I can't really run it. I don't know enough information to really...
But what about the counter-argument, which is that if you were going to make up this story about a flying saucer, you know, if it was all false, why would you throw in this story about the cucumbers as a cure for AIDS? I mean, surely that would debunk your, you know, and then go to China to try and find it.
When you've been working on this project, I'm sure you will talk about all sorts of stuff, because once you start knowing there's extraterrestrials and they've got sources to get at you, there'll be loads of spin-offs, and this may have come along that, oh, by the way, this AIDS has been invented and they have the cure for it, and it's probably been talked about in the canteen or something.
And perhaps some of the facts are distorted along the way.
Correct,
I mean,
a lot of
for example, he said that he actually named the guy who designed the virus. He was a naval doctor. Naval doctor. And I think he went to try and contact this guy as well. I don't know whether he managed to, but you know, it seems. The other thing that I read was that John Lear claimed that it came about that it was designed in 85, and you know that doesn't match with the fact that AIDS was discovered in 1981. Right. You know, that was another flaw in the argument. But we'll leave that one. We'll put that one down as a
neutral.
I mean, of course, the other possibility is that Bob Lazar is, in fact, a misinformation specialist working on behalf of the government.
Right, OK.
Which is a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he passed that lie detector test, didn't he?
Well, no, he didn't, actually. According to what was actually said, the results were inconclusive.
Right, OK.
Which is not the same as passing it, really.
I heard the quote from the police officer who did it, and he said, if that guy's lying, he ought to be in Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, that's true, yeah, I agree.
I think it was 2 to 1
that is exactly what was said. But you know, as I say, that isn't necessarily, you know, conclusive in any particular way.
I mean, you know, if it has been made up, it's one hell of a sort of the physics behind it and the way that he describes this element being bombarded with a proton.
Element 115.
Yes, being bombarded with a proton to produce a gravity wave. You know, it's a very, very elaborate you know, story. And the other thing is, the craft itself, he claims to have been in 2 levels.
Yes.
And then he's asked, you know, what's at the top part? He says, well, I don't know what's up there. So there's clearly parts that he doesn't know about, which is very cleverly fabricated.
Well, in other parts of it, and also in these 3D renditions that were done for the TV series, he said that there were small seats because the fact that he had to pull back a mesh grill to actually see the gravity amplifiers hanging down underneath. But just coming back to this element 115, which is this magical element that actually
very compelling.
That actually, you know, sounds very plausible. This is where I have problems, because on the one hand, you know, one statement that Bob makes sounds extremely plausible, and then on the other hand, it sounds very implausible. Now, one of the claims are that the aliens have done a deal with the government in exchange for whatever privileges, and they've been given £500 of this element 115.
Yeah.
Now, Bob actually says very clearly that this element has an extremely short half-life. So if it's got such a short half-life, the £500 is going to be gone very quickly, unless they do something very special.
What I find about compelling about Bob Lazar is, again, back on element 115, that when he found it, it wasn't on the periodic table, was it?
I believe not.
And then later on, now it's been proven that element 115 exists. So where did if he could make something up like element 115 and then suddenly define it, I'm sure that helps his story.
And another thing about the short half-life, Dale, I think that 115 doesn't have the short half-life. I think it's element 116, which when 115 is bombarded with a stream of protons, it produces 116, and it's 116 that produces the gravity wave, which has this short half-life. So I think it's an island of stability, I think they call it, where you have the periodic table where as elements get heavier, they get less and less stable, and then they're completely unstable. But then you go a bit further, and they call it an island of stability. And I think the other thing is that it's a specific isotope of element 115 that claims, which they've never managed to...
They can answer that question, can't they?
Sorry?
If there's any physicists looking in, they can answer that question.
I'm sure they could.
But also, Bob in his first broadcast with George Knapp, which I caught a long time ago, he actually describes the craft in a slightly different way. He says that there are gravity amplifiers hanging down, but he said the propulsion power for the craft is an annihilation reactor, which uses antimatter. But yet, of recent things where he's talked about the power supply for the craft, he's talked about element 115, 116, but there hasn't been any mention of this annihilation reactor. So how much did he actually find out about how it works?
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows? Does he know how it actually works now? He was off the project, wasn't he? Got taken off the project.
But it certainly sounds plausible from, you know, when you go into the physics of the gravity wave, and I think... there are the other proposed methods of anti-gravity propulsion are different to the one that Lazar proposes. A lot of them have spinning superconductors, for example, which is where you get the alleged
the vortex ring under massive pressure.